So I actually represent all of the school superintendents in America. And we have been working, as you know, and you can imagine, with superintendents from all around the country in models for opening schools safely. We began that process back towards the end of March and April when we realized that most schools in the country were going to close, and then what would be the guidelines for reopening. So we pushed the CDC hard at the beginning because they were reluctant to come out with the very specific guidelines that we needed. And I think that we have seen throughout this whole process that part of the CDC's problem is the administration finds that the guidelines that the CDC has developed are contrary to, I think, their primary objective, which is to reopen the economy at all costs. So we have to deal with that. And so consequently, in working with our superintendents, the focus point are the CDC guidelines, and that the reopening of schools is based on a situation being, from a health perspective, safe for students and for staff. And basically, there are three models in general that have been developed. The most popular one is what's referred to as the hybrid model, where in order to deal with the spacing issues in a school, basically you bring in a portion of the school population that can be safely spaced 6 feet apart within the building, while the other students remain at home on remote learning. And then there are schedules that have been developed for that process to shift so that all students have the opportunity to be physically in school a certain number of days of the week. The other model is basically total remote learning. And the last model is basically returning to school as when we left. All the youngsters come in, no social spacing, no face masks, no regard to guidelines. I have to tell you that at the beginning of this process, and we've been at it all along, at the beginning of this process, there were many states around the country that were, particularly around the Southern Belt, that had decided that they were basically just going to reopen schools normal, without social spacing, without face masks. Today, that has changed dramatically because of the continuing increase in the infection rate in the United States. So many of those states, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Arizona, Texas, are now looking at it very differently. And those school districts have reversed themselves and are now saying that they will open remotely. We can pretty well expect at this point in time, unless there's a dramatic change in the infection rate, that most school districts will open remotely. And of course, we've heard about the problems that that has in terms of the needs of youngsters to be in the building. And we all want the children to be in the building. So there are a number of issues, I think, that can facilitate the ability of schools to at least open partially for some of the students, if not for all. All of those require money. And so one of the things that we are doing as an association is that we are very active in the Washington, D.C. area in terms of working with Congress to make sure that those dollars come forth. We have estimated, and our organization was the one that developed what the actual cost would be for school districts to be able to open safely in terms of what they would need for sanitizing the school, for protective equipment for teachers, in order to the busing, which would minimize significantly the number of kids that could be in a single bus, so more busing would be required. And our estimate comes up to about $490 per student, just for the safety issues. We've also heard about the number of children that still today, as we speak now, there are 11 million children out there that still do not have the laptops that they will need for remote learning and don't have the internet access in the home. So we are proposing a $200 billion package. And when I say we, not just the superintendents, every education organization in Washington, the school boards, the teacher unions, every organization worked together in saying we need a $200 billion package in order to safely open schools and provide the students with what they need. What we're seeing from Congress are, at this point, three different packages. About a month ago, the House came up with their HEROES Act, and the HEROES Act was proposing a $58 billion expenditure for education. Remember, we're asking for 200 billion. The Senate Democrats just came out with their bill, and they're proposing $175 billion. And that's much closer and the best of the three packages. The Senate Republican bill proposes $70 billion. What we're asking also within those bills are dollars for what we refer to as E-rate. That's the program that's in place right now that provides homes with telephone access if they economically are able to receive that kind of funding. We want a similar situation for internet access so that every home in this country has internet access, and this bill would pay for that. We're asking about $4 billion to be able to do that. And that could be done very quickly and would be the fastest solution. I heard Pedro at the beginning talk about getting the communication companies to chip in. We've been at them at the very beginning of this process. They're not willing to do that. So that's going to be the problem. The solution here is to get the federal government to put up the money to do it. So all of these things together are basically necessary for schools to reopen safely. So at this stage of the game, we could almost predict that the way things are going, the majority of school districts in America will be doing remote learning from the beginning of the school year till this situation changes dramatically. Because in order to bring any children into the school, dollars will be required. In California, you've seen that our 6 largest school districts have already, the superintendent have already indicated that they can't open school. They did that over a month ago, that they cannot open school because they don't have the funding to do it. So they're going to open remotely. So we're seeing more and more of that happen. And it's critical that we push our representatives in Washington to be sure, both Republicans and Democrats, to be sure that the money is coming. Now, here's the problem. Today's the last day in July. The Senate is going on their summer break. When is this going to happen? If it doesn't happen till probably, realistically, if it happens at all, it would be towards the end of August. There are many school districts that are already planning that they would open at the beginning of the month, around August 17th. And other school districts, primarily in the northeast section of the United States, who talk about opening after Labor Day. Well, they're not going to have the time to plan what they're going to do. That's why they're saying they're going to begin with remote learning, because who knows when and if Congress will finally act and those monies will be available and those monies will be coming to the district.